Hey everybody, welcome back. No, I've been absent for quite some time right here on this show, but we're coming back here. So anyway, as the opening clip would it was taken from the man and the legend, in my opinion, I guess. James Caan, the late James Caan, since we last got on the channel and everything. Unfortunately, we lost James Caan. And James Caan passed away. Very, very sad news there. But anyway, here we are, coming back around. And this time what we're talking about is, I guess, a little bit of the stories on grips and whatnot. Those of you that did end up getting grips and purchasing them from the eBay store that was up and going, thank you very much. You guys, a lot of you guys made that happen, and that was really cool. To really, for me, to see it come full circle, in a sense, that was what it was for me. Because going all the way back, when I started to become kind of interested in the grip making, really, and forgive me, I don't very, it's been so long. The story, I try to remember it the best I can. It started with really just the Rooster Shooter, which was a John Wayne replica made by Cimarron, and it had the aged yellow synthetic ivory grips on it. And I remember seeing that in an American Rifleman magazine, and I said I got to have that, and went to the local dealer that I mostly dealt with, showed it to him. I said, hey, I got to have this thing. Can you get this thing? So, and he did. He got it. Of course, in the state I was living in at the time, you had the little 2-week waiting period. Finally got through that and got it home. And I was just so excited. I mean, I couldn't wait to, turn on a John Wayne flick and watch the movie and check it out and check out my new gun. Well, as it would have, now for some reason, that particular the revolver that they did, they like acid washed all the bluing off it. That's how they antiqued it. So living on an island where salt and everything in the air, that thing would start to rust quite quickly. I noticed. So I was trying to figure out what to do, and I think I had a bunch of oil on it or something. But either way, the worst thing that could happen happened, which it slid and hit the floor and had the hard tile on the floor, and I already saw the grips break, so I knew it was broken. And so when I kind of came to my senses and my shock, I went and took a look at it, and yeah, it was definitely broken. There was a chip right through the corner that was busted. And I tell you, man, I was weak because I didn't even have the thing, not even 24 hours when this happened. So that led me to the thought process of like, is there a way to recreate these or whatnot? Now, living on an island, I had this idea that what if I could cast these out of some kind of polyurethane or something like that, some sort of composite. And I want to talk to a buddy of mine that was building surfboards, and he looked at it and he says, you could do that out of surfboard material, casting material, polyurethane and whatnot. He says, same way I would make fins for surfboards, making a mold and going about it that way. And he said, so what you want to probably do is go down to the Big Island Marina, which is that little shop down there, and go talk to those guys about doing it. So I was a little reluctant because, on the island, you don't just walk into some place. It's not as common as it is like out here in the lower 48, especially in a great state like Arizona. You don't just walk in there with, gun parts or start talking about guns. So I was a little reluctant. So I walked in there and I started asking her questions about how to use this stuff for casting and whatnot. So they showed me what to do, and finally he asked me what I was doing. And I ended up showing him what I was doing, and so he said, "Oh, okay." He said that'll work, and they showed me some stuff and what I could use and all that. So off I went with a little bag full of polyurethane and all the stuff to make it kick off and all that. So here I am on my way home to create a big mess, and that's really ultimately what it is. It was a giant mess, nowhere near what I wanted it to be. Huge waste of money that I did not have a whole lot of, still don't, and just sitting there scratching my head, trying to figure out what is going on here. What do I do? The old methods of me attempting to do this was just so time consuming. I don't even want to think of the hundreds and hundreds of maybe thousands of dollars that went into just trying to figure this out, just one thing after another, just nonstop. There was a point in time where I actually absolutely gave everything up. I decided I was not going to spend any more money on these materials to try to keep doing this. That was just ending up in what I consider failure, and didn't end up the way I wanted it. It was really hard to do. Everything was done by hand. I really didn't have any kind of electric tools, and for the most part, all the grips was still made by hand. I really don't use much electric stuff in creating it. So, I just given up. So there was a moment there where I actually bought a set of Hogue polymer style grips, and they were white to begin with. So I had this idea. I said, I'm just going to buy these and stain them yellow. It's got to be easy. I'll just buy some food coloring, and there you go. As it would have, now, when you're dealing with a company like Hogue, and of course they're really top-of-the-line stuff, it matters on the type of material, whoever makes the grips. Now, it's going to benefit you to buy the cheapest brand of grips if you're going to go with staining. It just is. I've noticed that if you go with like the cheapo $30 company, their stuff will take to staining better. So here I was with this set of this Hogue polymer type grip, and I was out trying to stain it. And I tell you, it was one evening. I went out, a buddy of mine, Billy, and we started going through ideas. I said, I even said, okay, food coloring doesn't work, fabric dye doesn't work. He's the one that suggested. He goes, there's this stuff that you could dye like, countertops with and stuff. So we went to the hardware store and looked at that and tried it. He actually we were in the hardware store, and I said, man, I don't want to spend like $20 on this, it might not even work. He just goes right there. He goes, well, give me the grip. And I had it in my hand, or in my pocket, and he took it from me, and he actually just opened the product right there in the store and just like tipped his finger in it, smeared it on the grip, and closed it up. And he says, here, we'll see if that stains it. And if it does, then you can buy it. It's just, this is the kind of stuff. Nothing was working. He just sat there in coffee for 2 days, 3 days, nothing. Nothing would, these things were just like impervious to being stained. I even came up with the idea before the night ended. I said, I'm going to buy a Sharpie marker, break it open, and spill the ink on it. A Sharpie, colors anything. So I went home. Of course, that was a disaster. I remember sending him a message, and I said, hey, I that didn't work out too well. I'll never forget his message back to me, and it read, I hope to hell you learned your lesson and not trying to do this anymore. The more time I spent with this, and the more I realized no matter how much staining you do to it, it'll always just come off. Different types of solvents and oils that you're using, it's going to remove some of the staining. And I realized that staining has to be done all the way through. It just the color has to be all the way through. So back to the back to making grips. Back to trying to color them as a one and cast them the way they're, as one solid color. And I just kept running into nothing but I came close, and some of the early grips that I did. Now, there was a very, very, very select few people that actually ended up with those early grips. Santee over in Arizona Ghost Rider is one of them. He was the very first person to ever purchase a set for me. I didn't even know who he was. He was the very first person to become interested and message me. And this was back when YouTube, you could message people easily on YouTube, not anymore. So when I made those grips for him, and the grips that I originally sent him, I can't even explain to you the amount of handwork and just time that goes into making those. Everything was hand sanded, hand polished, hand aged. I mean, everything. And his set came out excellent. I just couldn't believe how good his set came out. And then from there, it led to one other person. I think a couple other people bought some, and I really had no intentions of selling them. That wasn't the point. The point was I was trying to make them for myself. So, long story short, in the end, I must say, after all this time, I got it down to kind of a science now, where I can pretty much make a set with using the most minimal amount of materials possible. I know exactly how much material I need to make it, and I can get away with doing that. So I'm really happy with that aspect of it. The next part was 1911 grips. That was always something. It was like, I want to make a 1911 grips. I want to make 1911 grips. And I tell you, it took a long time, a lot of trial error, a lot of how do I do this? And finally, I figured it out. Now, it takes a little tweaking. I mean, you gotta understand it takes a little bit of because not everybody's frames are the same, and it just really is it's different. And there was a couple of things that were on my mind and that I wanted to make. So one of them certainly was the one that really was like a personal mission of mine, was the old style brown orange, I guess what they call the Colt wood grip. That was something I really wanted. When I heard there was a company that possibly made it, when I ordered it, got them in the mail, they weren't what I wanted. They just didn't do it. There wasn't the marbling I wanted. So I started thinking about ways to do it, and out came the product that I came up with. And the cool thing is, you just really never know how it's going to shake out, what kind of swirlings you're going to get through it, and not all that. It's all just when you pop it out, and there it is. So after doing that, I started venturing off into my favorite is the old skip checkered or crosshatch grips that I saw years ago. The reason I got into them was actually the cover, the poster of Hard to Kill with Steven Seagal. He's got them on his gun, and he always rocked them. I think that was a thing of the 80s and stuff. That was just like a cool thing to do. So I'll never forget sitting there on eBay trying to find a set. Harrods don't even make them anymore. That's who originally made the grips, is Harrods. They're called the D45 grip. It's a skip checker grip, and really it's just a piece of wood, that they start with, and then they black lacquer them. So eventually I ended up figuring out how to do it, and I became successful at it. Now I rock them all the time on my stuff. Sold quite a few of them on the store, so a lot of you actually have one. Cool. That's awesome. I'm glad to be able to share it with you. The other things to start working on is extremely aged ivory style grips here. So as you can see, there they are, and there's some stuff I made, and see what you think of those. I really some heavy duty aging on some of those, and anyway, but yeah, it's been a long it just buried in making them. really just as a one-person thing and figuring it out. A lot of failures, a lot of messes, disasters, countless frustration, just wanting to give up, injuring yourself on different equipment, trying to make the job easier. And in reality, there's really no easy way to do it. It's just going to be a mess. There's going to be a lot of sanding involved. And really, and I mean this when I say this, to everybody that bought a set of my grips, I put a lot of effort into trying to make sure that I could make the best product that I could, so that when it got in your hands, that you were going to be happy with it. I really did. I did not just throw things together. I really spent a lot of time, attention to detail, but it's the best I could do with it being completely handmade and hand done and shaped and sanded. And it's all done by my hands. It's just the best we could do. So anyway, thank you for all the support. Everybody that got some grips, I hope you're really happy with them and really enjoyed making them and getting them out there, and so that other people could enjoy them too.